Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. I guess you can call it a podcast. First off, let me say I'm trying to speak a little quieter because I feel like I come off really loud. Unfortunately, my mic is just all that, and I can't help that. So you guys just may have to turn me down. I can't help the fact that my mic sounds nice. Check one. That's not my fault. Okay, so just turn me down. All right, so we're gonna get into Married to Medicine, and the episode starts off with them showing everyone with their families. We get to Anila and her husband, and they're talking about how she's saying how her daughter now wants to be a blogger or vlogger instead of a doctor, and he's like, yeah, okay. We have lots of time to kind of sway her the other way. And I'm with her husband. Let's go ahead and have her be a doctor as opposed to a vlogger. No shade, because that's what I'm kind of doing a little bit. But yeah, doctor sounds good. Doctor sounds good. We have Simone and her husband talking about the kids and, how she really wants him to, eventually move out and everything. They're just kind of doing a flashback from last week. Then her son comes home, her oldest son, Miles. And she's like, well, Miles, let's go over your budget. And she's like, let's go to my computer. So they go to the computer and she's asking him questions, how much he got saved up. He said he got like 3,000 saved up, and he's like, give or take, maybe a little over 3, maybe a little under 3. And I'm like, such a young adult, I swear. But then she asked him to go in his bank account. And she's like, yeah, log into your bank account and let's see what you're spending your money on. Now, I'll just be honest, I don't like that. Sorry, I know he lives in her house and she has a right to want to know about his finances, but I don't think to that extent. I'm sorry. My motto, which I've always told everyone around me, all my nieces and nephews, everyone around me, I just don't talk a whole lot of finances with a whole lot of people. I don't let you into my money matters. It's not your business. And I advise them to do the same. I understand that's his mom, but for me to go on my bank account and show you what I'm spending my money on, no, ma'am. Like, I would never ask my daughter to do it. And I think with the way that she grew up, with me being how I am and me instilling that on her, she wouldn't do it anyway. And that's fine, because I don't need to know what she's spending her money on. But anyway, I think he said like 200 on 3 classes. And I believe it was like at a gym or something. So she had a fit about that. And okay, that's fine, because I guess she pays the cell phone bill and she pays everything. So she's like, well, you know what? Why don't you just go ahead and take over your cell phone bill? It's like $72. He's like, he's doing, once again, the same thing that young adults do. And he's like, listen, this isn't making any sense. If we talking about a budget, how am I budgeting and saving money if you want me to spend money? I'm sorry, sweetie. Bills is not spending money. Bills is paying bills. Spending money is buying 3 gym classes for $200. That's what that is. So they leave them. Then we get to Contessa, and she's at her practice opened. So she and Dr. Scott, they're there, and she's first of all, Dr. Contessa, what is going on with that big old I Dream of Jeannie ponytail on the side of your head? She didn't look bad. She looked cute. However, how old are you? We don't do that. It is not 1989. Don't put a ponytail on the side of your head, ma'am. Don't do it. And you're a doctor. No, I don't even care if it's for the confessional. Maybe she don't do it when she's at work. Probably not. I'm sure it had like a ton of weave in it. But just don't do it. It's not cute. So apparently she has some sort of illness or disease. I'm not sure what it's called. Next time I have to write better notes because I didn't take down what it is, but it's something that affects her edges. So he came, he drew blood, and he separated the blood and then re-injected some part of the blood back into her edges. It looked painful, but maybe it helps with the hair growing back. It looked painful to me, but she is more than likely used to it, so it didn't really faze her. But while he's doing that, she's talking to him about the relationship and all the stuff that she's doing and how she's kind of overwhelmed and, what are we going to do about our relationship, pretty much. And he's just so freaking nonchalant. I swear to God, Dr. Scott. Now, I think Contessa does a lot. Contessa do a little bit too much because she tells too much. She tells too much. She kind of flies off the handle a little bit. She has a short fuse, you could tell. And he's just so nonchalant, which can be irritating. So he's like telling her, what do you mean? What are you talking about, the relationship or whatever? He's like, I'm thinking, well, she wants to open this business and sign a lease together, so this girl ain't going nowhere. And that's what he told her. And she's like, really? That's your answer? And yes, that was his answer. So later on, they're in the confessional, and the producer is like asking Scott, Dr. Scott, would you go to therapy? And under his breath, he's like, oh, I'm sick of this shit. So she hears him. She's automatically irritated. So she's like telling the producer, move on. He's like, so then Dr. Scott, no, I can answer. No, you can't answer because I just heard you say you sick of this shit under your breath. So move on. And he's like, no, I'll go. And I'm like, Dr. Contessa be letting him have it. However, that is kind of shitty what he did. And she's just like, you playing it up for the camera because under your breath you saying you sick of talking about it, you sick of it, so let's just move on. So then we move on to Quad getting ready for her. Well, first off, we gotta start with Anila. She goes and she meets up with Lisa Nicole. And they go, I guess she has a boutique or something. So she's trying on a couple dresses to promote on her social media. So she's telling her how much it'll be. She's trying on dresses. Everything works out. They get done. They sit down. Lisa Nicole is like, hey, so what happened at Dr. Jackie's house? And I'm like, hold on, Lisa Nicole. Weren't you the one that was walking out with Toya kind of clowning Anila? Like, why is she coming at you like that? And who said you're talking about her? And it's just so, like, she was just being real petty with it. Now that you're with Anila, you're asking Anila what's going on with you and Toya. And now you're saying, oh, well, you got to put your foot down with Toya. You just got to stand up for yourself with Toya. Girl, don't play both sides. Lisa Nicole is still annoying. Her voice is still annoying. She's still annoying. Period. Because she's a flip-flopper. She doesn't know. Like, to be on the show, do you necessarily have to be on someone's team? Just be neutral. Just listen. Like, but she wants to start getting in the mess. I guess she's trying to get back on the show, which hopefully they don't do, because I'm not a fan. I'm just not a fan of her. So anyway, Quad calls Anila. And when she answers, she puts her on speaker like they always do. And Lisa Nicole is like, does she know you're with me? And Anila's like, no. And she's like, oh. So Quad's like, well, I'm having this little shindig or whatever. Wanted to invite you. It's going to be good. We're going to have, games, food, fun. And Lisa Nicole is like, hey, Quad, it's Lisa. Quad goes, oh, hell no. I was like, yeah, I love Quad. I'm sorry. I love Quad and I love Dr. Heavenly. So I get a kick out of them. So she's like, oh, hell no. So then they do this whole montage about how they didn't get along. And, Quad talking about how her husband was gay and bringing somebody to, what's her name? Lisa felt like Quad brought somebody to kind of, set up her husband or whatever. Ended up throwing wine or water or something in Quad's face. So they just have a real bad history. So Quad's like, no. Lisa's like, am I invited too? And Quad is like, girl, should you be invited? And she's like, well, I just kind of want to bury the hatchet, start over, this and that. And Quad is like, yeah, you can be invited. You both are invited. And I'm like, Quad is better than me, because if we have an issue to that extent, no, I'm sorry, we're going to have to work it out and have some closure. You're going to have to apologize to me, even though apologies don't really mean that much, but you're not just coming all up in my space after all that you did. Flip side, it's been a number of years, and hopefully they've all grown, so maybe it's not a big deal. So we see Dr. Simone go over to Dr. Jackie's house, and she answers the door, and I was a little confused about her saying that she was ready to cry. She's just like, we're getting old because, I'm so emotional all the time. But she ends up going into the closet, Dr. Jackie's closet, and she's like, hey, do you have somebody that comes to do this for you? Set it up, because it was just like immaculate. So she's like, no, I do it myself. And then they do this montage of Dr. Jackie with her spices just all facing the same way, and everything has to be just so neat. And she's like, yeah, she has OCD kind of real bad. And they called her single white female, because in that movie, you remember, she had to have the spices facing the same way. And I guess I'm a little OCD, because I need my spices facing the same way. I need my cereal facing the same way. Coats, clothes in the closet, everything needs to be facing the same way, because why not? But it was really, really good to see Dr. Jackie and Dr. Simone together. So I'm hoping that in real life they are working on patching up their friendship for real, because, I get a kick out of them, and Dr. Heavenly with them as well, and Quad. The show could actually just be them four, and we can get rid of everybody else, and I would be happy. I really would. So then we get to Quad's house. I'm trying to think if that's when we get to Quad's house. If it's not, that's when we're going to get to Quad's house. We're going to get there now. And she's setting up and everything. She has an assistant there with her. Assistant, maybe Fran. I think more of an assistant, though. He was doing a lot of work. But what does Quad do that she needs an assistant? I don't know. And that's no shade, because that's my girl. But, maybe she has an assistant for parties. But, so Anila comes first. Anila arrives first to the party. And then Dr. Heavenly or Contessa may have come in between them, because when they get upstairs, Dr. Heavenly is hugging Anila, and she's all like, hey, best friend, hey, bestie. And then when they sit down, yeah, maybe Contessa came before Dr. Heavenly, because they sit down and they're eating and drinking, and Dr. Heavenly is like, yeah, Anita is my best friend. And Contessa's like, her name is not Anita, it's Anila. And I'm just like, Dr. Heavenly is so freaking shady. That girl knew her name was not Anita. She did. But so they laughed at that. And then in the confessional, Dr. Heavenly's eating the food, and she's like, wow, I got some good food. And she's, she really know how to cook. She could have a man. She can keep him, with this food. She should be able to have a man, keep him and all that. And she's like, but it's just a hard way to get to this food. Saying Quad is difficult, and it's probably true, I'm sure. But speaking of the food, Quad clowned Dr. Jackie for what she served at their party, their sit-down party, which it didn't sound bad to me, and it looked fine. And she's like, oh, if this is what we are, this is what you serve us, and when you come to my house, you only get the best. Now, I'm sure her food tasted good, because she, she's a chef or whatever. She cooks really well. Got a cookbook and all that. However, your choice on the menu was not elevated. It wasn't up there and, way better than Dr. Jackie's. You literally had, was that ribs they were eating? ribs and stuff like that. Like, I mean, I don't know, maybe because it was just fun food and it wasn't a dinner, but you can't be clowning other people's food and you not serving out lobster and all that too. And that's my girl, so I'm not trying to clown her. So anyway, Dr. Jackie and Simone comes together. Again, love to see it. Lisa Nicole comes, and Toya and Carrie come together. Toya is bringing her own drink because she's like, you never know what these people are serving. And I'm sorry, it's so, she just has no class. Tacky Toya strikes again. Like, she's always tacky. She's always tacky. Oh, speaking of tacky, I'm sorry, I forgot a part in the beginning when they were showing families and she's sitting there and Dr. Eugene, she's in the kitchen. Dr. Eugene comes out fully dressed and ready to go to work and he's like, oh, I'm tired. She has the nerve to ask him, why are you tired and you ain't even been to work yet? And I'm like, girl, you ain't even been to work yet. So what are you talking about? Why can't he be tired? And he's like, well, I worked last night. So, and I'm just like, Toya irritates me so bad. And then she has the nerve to say there's so many people that are jealous of me because my life is just everything. My kids are back in school, so now I can, play tennis, and I think they call it tipsy tennis or whatever, where she's drinking while she's playing tennis. And I don't know, Toya seems to be drinking a whole heck of a lot, and she really is very, very angry, which is why Jackie asked Simone, why do you think Toya is so angry all the time? And she's like, well, I don't know. Dr. Heavenly dogs her. Quad dogs her. So, that could have something to do with it. No, Toya's just angry. She's just very angry. And I think it has a lot to do with that house and the fact that was her dream house. And now it's on the market. And I really think that has a lot to do with her misery. So anyway, she comes to the party with Carrie. So they come upstairs. She's looking like she don't want to be there. So my thing is don't be there. We don't want you there anyway. We don't want you on the show. We don't want to look at you, Toya. So it would be great if you just exit stage left. But so they come upstairs and Quad is like, oh, hey. First of all, Toya walks past everyone, goes and gives Contessa a hug at the back of the bar or whatever. Anila's like, oh, what are we in ninth grade that she's ignoring me? Of course, we know she's not going to speak to Dr. Heavenly. Do you think Dr. Heavenly cares? Because she doesn't. But she didn't even say hi to Quad. You come in her house. You didn't even. So Quad's like, she didn't even greet me in my own house. Then she goes to the back of the bar and she finds where Quad got her some Patron. So her drink of choice was actually there. And she's just like, oh, hey, thanks. But she has no class whatsoever. And then Quad addresses Carrie, and she's like, oh, hey, Carrie. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in years, and you weren't invited, but, okay. And Carrie's like, yeah, I'm here for, moral support for Toya because she doesn't feel like she's been, no, she didn't say that at that time. So she's just like, well, I just want to, kind of bury the hatchet or whatever, reconnect and everything. And she's like, your house is really nice. I have one just like it. It's an investment property. Only difference is mine don't have an elevator. So Quad is like, oh, well, that's about a $30,000 difference, sweetie. So Dr. Contessa says, if you think you're about to one-up Quad in her own house, you're not. And I'm like, Carrie, why are you here? Why are you here for real? Really trying to be Toya's bodyguard, but can you handle Quad or any of these other women? I don't think so. So how are you here to be her bodyguard, per se? So they start this game, and Quad picks the teams, and it's Toya, Dr. Simone, Dr. Heavenly, and Dr. Jackie. So Quad is messing with was it Dr. Heavenly? Dr. Simone, I think it was. So she's hollering all in her face or whatever. I'm going to be in your face hollering and telling you what to do or whatever. So they're joking, and Toya's looking really, really irritated out the corner of her eye like, ugh. And I'm like, her energy, she would have had to go. Her energy was just killing the whole vibe. So they end up doing their dance, and then as they're dancing, Dr. Contessa is on the side, and she's kind of doing what they're doing because Quad wants them to twerk. So Dr. Contessa's on the side, and she's kind of doing what they're doing. Dr. Simone looks at Contessa and said, I want to dance with Contessa. I'm like, ew, Dr. Simone, your lesbianism is coming out. It's showing, sis. So it was cute. They end up doing their dance. It was cute. They did absolutely no twerk whatsoever. But it was cute. The other team was Team B. Dr. Contessa, Carrie, Lisa Nicole, and Anila. And they did an awful job. So they lost, basically. Nothing else to really go into with that. They did a really, really bad job. But Contessa was like, really? Dr. Jackie was able to beat me in dancing? Really? And I have to say, Dr. Heavenly actually can dance. She really can. I don't know about twerking, but she can actually dance. Because when she was doing the little kick out or whatever, I was like, oh, hey. She was getting it. So then we go upstairs she's like, let's go to the 4th floor. So they were going to the balcony. And some kind of way, they're like, oh, let me see this sleep number bed. And then they go back to when Quad's ex-husband, Dr. Greg, I think it was, he said that she stole the sleep number. She took the sleep number. So they're like, let me see the sleep number. So who goes in there? Dr. Contessa was in there. She did not get on her bed. Carrie goes in there, Anila. So basically Team B all goes to Quad's bedroom, which is so inappropriate. And neither one of these goofballs are doctor. Lisa Nicole and Carrie actually sit on her bed. And Dr. Contessa's like, I would never get on somebody's bed. Like, that's just rude. Why would you do that? So she, she lays on the little bench that's by the bed. So Quad comes in and she's like, let's just go upstairs with the other ladies. And while the other ladies were downstairs, Dr. Jackie and Toya was upstairs. So Dr. Jackie's trying to talk to Toya, and Simone is like, hey, well, Dr. Jackie asked, what's wrong with you and why you so mean. And she's like, well, I'm not mean. I'm not mean. I'm not mad. They're just not friends, that sort of thing. So Dr. Jackie's like, well, I just kind of chill out and do it that way. Like you could, instead of being mean, you could just chill out. So some kind of way Toya caught offense in that. I don't understand, but she did. But she's so irritating that she can catch offense pretty much from anything, especially this season. But the other girls join them, and it pops off right away because once again, Quad is like, I just wanted you all to see my home, and thanks for coming, this and that. And she's like, once again, Carrie, I did not know you were coming, and that is when Carrie's like, well, yeah, Toya feels like everybody's been, just kind of ganging up on her and not really here for her, so I came kind of as moral support for Toya. And as soon as she says that, Dr. Heavenly is like, Toya been talking shit about everybody's house, including yours, Quad. And Quad is like, yeah, I know. She called it an apartment. Does this look like an apartment? And Heavenly and Toya get into it. She's like, you need to shut up and mind your business. And they're going back and forth. Then Toya gets up and comes around, and her and Quad are in each other's faces. And they're like, she's like, this ain't an apartment, and you be talking shit, this and that or whatever. So they get into it real bad. And Toya, starts leaving. Anila and them, just say you're sorry. Just apologize. It's not that bad. Just say you're sorry. So they're going down the stairs fussing. Quad is letting her have it. Fuck out and, this and that or whatever. And then Toya's like, well, it is an apartment, all these goddamn steps. So she goes outside, and she's standing out front. Simone goes down there and talks to her, and she's like, how you doing? And she's like, I'm fine. So she takes the little mask off, or no, it's a shield that Quad provided for them. And I actually heard it hit the ground. So she's so freaking ignorant that she threw it on the ground in front of this lady's house. So she's like, no, I'm fine. Then she starts crying. And Simone's like, you're not fun. And she's like, these ladies and this and that. She's like in that bulldog, Dr. Heavenly. And she's always waiting to say something. Well, she called her a bitch. That bitch, Dr. Heavenly, that bulldog, always waiting to say something. So she's going off. And then Contessa goes downstairs. She's like, let me check on her. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, Carrie, why are you still there? Why are you still sitting there? Literally still sitting there. And, Quad is explaining how, what happened and how she, talked about her house and everything, and she had never even been there. And Carrie's literally still sitting there. So Contessa goes down to try to check on Toya. And when she goes down there, I totally noticed that Toya did not address her at all. She didn't even look at her. The entire time that Contessa's trying to, find out what's going on, Toya's just constantly talking to Simone. And I'm like, she's such an asshole. She really is. She's an ass. And I just don't like her. So they end up being like, okay, fine, let her go. So she goes. They go back upstairs, and Quad is like, Simone, can I talk to you? Simone is like, yeah, as long as you don't start all that, don't be fussing at me, don't scream at me, don't put your hands in my face and do all that. And she's like, why would I do that? Why would I do that to you? Well, you just did that, and you be doing that. And she's like, but that's her, and this is you, so why would I do that to you? So they end up speaking, and, Simone just kind of explains Toya's, space or whatever. Quad explains hers, and that's just kind of it for that. That's just pretty much where the episode ended, and it was interesting enough. It always gets better when Quad is there and when Dr. Heavenly is there, and she Dr. Heavenly came at pretty much the tail end to me, and she's so stupid. When they were fussing and going down the stairs, Dr. Heavenly comes back in the little room or on the patio, and she's like, I ain't got nothing to do with that. That ain't got nothing to do with me. And I'm like, she just stirred all of that up, and now it has nothing to do with her. I just love her. She has so much nerve. She really does. But she doesn't mean any harm. So yeah, it was okay. They saved the best for the last couple minutes, but I'm just kind of over Toya and everybody fussing with Toya, and I'm just like, I'd be okay again if she left the show, because she's serving no purpose, and it's not even good drama with her, because it's the same thing over and over and over, and I'm over it. But thank you guys for coming and listening to my Married to Medicine review, and I will see you next week. Bye.